Pete Works here, coming to you with One Piece SBS 112. So, before we start with the interesting information from the SBS, we need to go over some preliminary stuff. So, recently it was Nami's birthday on July 3rd. Happy birthday, Nami! And some new art was released for her, so that's pretty cool. On to more Nami centric news. During the Dodgers collaboration with One Piece, the live action actress Emily Rudd threw the opening pitch for the game. Along with that, we got a special One Piece animation to commemorate the collaboration. So that's cool as well. But first, before we get into the SBS questions proper, we have a very interesting update. Gunko has a family name. That family name is Manmayer. So her full name is Manmayer Gunko. What's also very interesting about this is that during the God Valley incident, we have a weird Pizza Hat girl who had blue hair with her tongue sticking out and she was holding a rifle. We don't see her eyes though. She too apparently is a part of the Manmayer family. I don't know where that is confirmed, but her picture is showing up with Gunko's picture on the Wikia, so I don't know where that was. I must have missed something. But yeah, she's a part of the Manmayer family as well. She is still unnamed. But with that being said, I'm under the impression, based on her relationship with Brook, that the Manmayer family may be a new addition to the whole makeup of the Celestial Dragons, because we know, based on what York's ambitions were, that people can be added to the ranks of Celestial Dragon. So I'm thinking that the Manmayer family are a new addition, and perhaps before they were inducted into the Celestial Dragons, Brook worked for this family. Because Brook has always been very academia coded, because he knows a lot about music. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that fencing is always associated with academia. Music is as well, and it's very interesting that the two prominent fencing characters we have in One Piece, namely Brook and Cavendish, have some sort of tie to a kingdom, which makes me think both of them have some sort of academic education of some sort, because of course Cavendish was a former prince of the bourgeois kingdom, and then we know Brook was a part of a battle convoy of a certain kingdom. So maybe this certain kingdom belonged to the Manmayer family before they rose to the ascension of Celestial Dragon. Another very funny thing, and I don't know if anyone's mentioned this, but Brook's attacks, right? The big famous one that he's known for is called 3-verse humming Aeronaut Slash. This was a rename because the attack was originally called Requiem La Banderole, or Requiem Lee Banderole. So, funny thing about those two names. First of all, the rename has the word arrow in it. Gunko is the user of the arrow fruit. Secondly, banderole is in the original name of the attack. A banderole is a long, narrow flag with a clef at the end. So, what do the arrow fruit's arrows resemble? They resemble cloth. Cloth like you would find perhaps in a flag. And a notch in the center makes that banderole look like an arrow point. So I guess you can call the clef in a banderole an arrow notch. You see how those two tie together? So it's very peculiar that these two names end up being vaguely related to Gunko's arrow fruit. So I wonder, is that a tie that we need to look towards in the future? But with that being said, let's move on to the SBS proper. The first bit of news that we get, and shout out to Pew on X because all of this has been translated by them, so big shout out to Pew. Okay, so what was Gabon's role in the Roger Pirates? And then we get a breakdown of a lot of Roger Pirates, not all of them, and we're going to touch on that in a second. So going down the list, we have Gol D. Roger as the captain. We have Silvers Rayleigh as the first mate. We have Scopper Gabon as the navigator, which makes a lot of sense because we see him wandering around Elbaf. So of course he just has good directional skills because he's the navigator. Then we have Moon Isaac Jr., who is the tactical officer. Crocus as the doctor. Don Kino, who is our helmsman, responsible for sailing up the Knock-Up Stream during the Roger/Odin flashback. But following them, we have Millet Pine. And this is where it gets interesting because Millet Pine looks like he's from Elbaf, but he's not a giant. And he is the interrogator slash torturer. Why does Roger need a torturer? But following him, we have Rowing as the scholar, Irio as an informant. Interesting. Spencer, who is the intelligence officer, which seems kind of similar to Irio. But following them, we have Peter Moon, the gunner, Jackson Banner, the musician. Small point about that. Isn't it funny? We just finished talking about flags, and this guy on Roger's crew is literally named Banner. A banner is a type of flag. So Brook's attack is named after a flag, and this guy is literally named Banner, which is a type of flag. Interesting. But lastly, we have the shipwright, which is Blue Marine. I wonder if he was an actual Marine. So the guys missing are the weird ghost guy whose name was Yu. Following him, of course, we don't have Big Boy Sunbell, the one fishman on the Roger Pirates. Not here. We don't have Rangram. Not here. We don't have Yaman. He's not here. There's no clarification as to what role Kazuki Odin served on the Roger Pirates. Max Marks isn't mentioned. Ben Kuro is not mentioned. Mr. Momora, not here. GB Galleon, not here. Ganryu, not here. Don Ringo, not here. Toro, not here. And then a guy who looks a lot like Sunbell, but he's a human, Seagull Guns, Nasdon, isn't here. So it's very, very interesting that we only got a small number of Roger Pirates positions confirmed. And then I don't know if this matters at all or if he's considered canon, but we didn't get any clarification on Douglas Bullet, nor do we get any further clarification on Shanks, Buddy, Inurashi, or Nekomamushi. I think they were just all apprentices, cabin boys, but it's funny that that's not listed. So a lot of people have been saying that this may be a hint to how Luffy's crew is built up in the future. In terms of position, no, I don't think that at all. In terms of amount, perhaps, because I do think from this, Luffy may have around 12 to 14 people under him. I think that's where we're going about it, because there are more characters, of course, who don't have positions just yet announced. So I think that's the hint that's being given to coincide with the amount of characters that we know at this point in time. That Luffy in the future will have at least 12 to 14 people under him, negating the original mission of having at least 10 men at the start of the story. So I think that's where we're going here. But it's super interesting with Roger that he doesn't have a chef confirmed at the moment, but he has a scholar, an interrogator, a informant, an intelligence officer, a lot of these things that seem to overlap pretty heavily. So I wonder what kind of timing he was on, because remember too, Crocus was a way later addition. Crocus didn't come on until the journey was almost over. So he went his entire career, presumably, without a doctor. That's wild. I don't know what that's about, brother. That's weird. But moving on to our next question. So our second question is talking about the guy in the sunglasses that appears in chapter 1096. And apparently this guy is Gil Bastar, and he's a former member of the Rocks Pirates. He turned out to be a zombie on Thriller Bark. This is very interesting because he originally was a character from Oda's Wanted, which was a one-shot he did before making One Piece. This makes him similar to fellow zombie Ryuma, because Ryuma originally too was from a one-shot before One Piece was made, called Monsters. So now we have these two legendary figures from past works reworked into One Piece as zombies being piloted by people's shadows. Another point to this is that, of course, Captain John was a reanimated corpse as well during this arc, and he was a former Rocks pirate. But there's another guy, you get to see him very clearly in the anime. there's a guy that shows up with Gilbastar who looks like a dude in some sort of helmet. I think this guy is a reanimated corpse on Thriller Bark as well, because there is this weird zombie whose name, I guess, is just Zombie 889, who is a weird elephant centaur. So I think that's this former Rocks pirate as well. We don't have a name for him, but he's a weird guy in a helmet. And this zombie is also wearing a golden helmet that looks very similar to the helmet that the guy is wearing. So perhaps this guy too is a zombie on Thriller Bark being piloted by some sort of shadow. But you know what would be funny? What if this guy was the previous holder of the elephant fruit, and in death his corpse has now been grafted onto the body of an elephant? So that's really funny. Both in life and in death, he's been an elephant. I like that. Outrageous. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But apparently Scopper Gabon was based off the actor Jean Gabon, at least in name. So that's neat. Then we see that Elbaf was actually based on a Scandinavian village. So that's pretty cool and pretty obvious, I think. But following that, we have a breakdown of all of the information regarding the new Giant Warrior Pirates. So Haruden, the captain, is 22 meters in height. He is 81 years old, and his favorite food is meatballs. Then we have Stanson, the shipwright, who is 19.5 meters tall. He is also 81, and his favorite food is Battlefront meals. I don't know what that means. Next, we have Roll, the navigator, who is 26 meters in height. So he's the tallest one so far. He is 63, so makes him very young. And his favorite food is berry pie. Next, we have Gerd, the doctor, who is 17 meters in height. She is 75, and she loves hamburger and macarons. Next, we have Big Boy Goldberg, who is the cook. He is 21 meters in height. He, like Road, is also 63, and his favorite food is roasted ram. So that's our boys from the new Giant Warrior Pirates. I like them all a lot. They're very cool. So if you remember, way back in the day, we're kind of speed running this a little bit, but back in the day, I made a video talking about what I thought a Dosundara was. My original thought was that these were the weird half animal people that you would see around One Piece, not minks, but guys like Caesar Clown or Mary, those type of guys. However, I was wrong. Big sad about that, but a lot of people were right, because apparently Dosundaras are half dwarves, because Dosundara sounds like Tontara, and it's all based off of footstep sounds. So going by this logic, the Tata and Tontara must be the smallest sound, and then the Dada and Dosundara must be the next sound up. We actually have a confirmed Dosundara in Charlotte Normandy, who is a part of the Charlotte family. I wonder if she is a Zoan Dofruit user like other dwarves that we've seen in Kabu and Bian, because she has little fairy wings. So maybe she is a fly Zoan of some sort, because so far our two Zoans, Kabu and Bian, were bug fruit users as well. Bian was a wasp, and then Kabu was a rhinoceros beetle. So maybe this is the case for her as well. But that's not all. Apparently, there is a mix between giant and dwarf, which is very rare, and they are called the Zeusin Dodo tribe. So Dodo would be the next sound up from Dada and Dosundara. So Zeusin Dodo. I guess too, this has something to do with the dough fruit called the Zusi no Mi, because it literally means the sound of heavy footsteps, and that's Fujitori's fruit, also known as the press fruit. So I guess the whole name has something to do with a footstep. Forgive me, I'm not too adept in Japanese automatopoeia. So Zeusin and Dodo could all just mean heavy footstep, because that's what we get from Fujitori's fruit. So I guess light footstep, slightly heavier footstep with Dosundara, and then the heaviest footstep with the Zeusin Dodo, which are the giant / dwarf mix tribe. Very interesting. I wonder if we're going to see a Zeusin Dodo further on in the series. Following that, we have cup sizes of giants. the cup size of Ripley and Gerd, namely, extend to about being 6 meters in length. So that's good to know. I'm glad we found that out. Next up, kind of skipping over some jokes, we come to a very important point which clarifies that I wasn't crazy and the various animals that we have been seeing in Elbaf are actually from Strong World. And Oda justifies this because he's saying, well, Elbaf is a land of strong creatures and whatnot, the same sort of conditions that Strong World was based around. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I believe I touched upon that when I first noticed this. Even off the coast, we have some of the fish or sea king creatures that we saw in Strong World. So yeah, the animals are based off of Strong World. I am so happy that that is confirmed. That bothered me deeply because I know I saw Stanson and Haruden beat up that Ethosaurus. I was telling you all, I knew it. But the last question of note is just, why does Gunko walk around in panties? And the justification for that is it's a part of her outfit, you pervert. So, okay. It is what it is. I wonder if that girl in the Pizza Hut also walks around in panties. I wonder if that's a Man-Mayer special. Something to think about indeed. So with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works.